empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Monday. We're coming off of a dominant win versus the Wisconsin Badgers. And the question is, who can stop the Buckeyes? Is there anybody in the regular season until we get to Michigan? Penn State looks like the only even possible challenger at this point. Michigan obviously will be formidable. But then it's on to Georgia and Bama. So we're going to see. I have the two best guys in the game, Bank and Nevada, joining me. But first, as always, thank you guys. We had a massive week on Buckeye Scoop. A lot of new subscribers on our YouTube, a lot of new premium subscribers. So thank you guys for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like, subscribe to our channel, comment who were the MVPs of the Wisconsin game in your eyes, and who can beat Ohio State. And also shout out where you're from. I love that. Do that right in the comments below. Those have been great. Love seeing where you guys are from. With that being said, I'm joined, as always, by Bill the Bank Greene and Nevadabuck. Nevada and Bank, how are you two doing?
Good, man. Real good.
Good. Well, real quick, just trying to figure out, is there anybody on the schedule in the regular season that can stop Ohio State? I'm going to start with you, Bank. Obviously, a dominant win. Wisconsin, I don't know what has happened to that program, but I don't know if they have anybody that could start for us at this point, which is weird because they used to have Melvin Gordon, TJ Watt, JJ Watt. But is there anybody that worries you in the regular season, Bank, coming down the stretch for Ohio State?
Oh, yeah. You got Penn State. Penn State's looking really good. Michigan, as you said, I think's got a pretty good team. So, anybody can win. I mean, Ohio State has very few undefeated seasons. So, you got to show up and play every week like they did, the other day. It was only week 1 when they were trailing a dog crap Notre Dame team in the second half. So, anything's possible. We've seen it all over the past, how many years we've watched Ohio State football. So they're darn good, and it's going to take a heck of a team to beat them. But, yeah, they can be beat.
Yeah, Nevada, I want your thoughts on that, then I'll weigh in real quick. Or what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, well, I think the big unknown right now is how's this team going to respond to going on the road? Like you're opening the season with, 5 straight home games, and then you go out there and you face a little bit of adversity. You face some crowd noise. Maybe, it's not going to be a whiteout on Penn State, but it's still going to be really loud, and Penn State's a very unpleasant place to play. And, what happens? You get behind a little bit, you drop a couple of passes, and the crowd starts getting ramped up, and can they keep it together? So, I think there's still a lot of questions. As Bank said, there haven't been many undefeated seasons in Ohio State's long history, so they're going to be double-digit favorites in every game from here on out. But that you got to go play the game, so it means nothing.
Yeah, I think it's really weird how there's some parallels in my mind to the 2006 season, which I was a part of, and Heisman-winning quarterback, 2 first-round wide receivers, 2 great running backs in Pitt and Beanie Wells. O-line was good. I think that this year's O-line is much better than the O-line I played on 06, and a really good emerging young defense with a big-time playmaker at middle linebacker like Tommy Eichenberg and James Laurinaitis. So I think it's going to be interesting down the stretch. I think that Penn State at noon is just a massive, massive win for Ohio State. Get in there. It's going to be a fist fight. You only got to win by 1. You get home nice and early. You don't have one of those 3 a.m. deals. I think 8 home games is huge for Ohio State. They get to stay home. The team stays better rested. It's easier to recover from injuries. I feel like when you don't have to get on a plane, fly, the guys are less beat up on Sundays. But it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. Nevada, I'm going to throw it back to you. Who was your MVP? Give me one on offense, one on defense from the Wisconsin victory. And were you surprised by how easy the game was at hand with Ohio State?
Well, defensively, obviously, it's Tommy Eichenberg for me. I think 14 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, just ridiculous stats. He's been all over the place. He's defensive MVP for the season. He's probably, if you went to a midseason All-American team for the country, he very well might be the middle linebacker first team. So he's been that good. He was that good on Saturday night, and we thought it was going to be a Tommy Eichenberg kind of game. He kind of took it over and really gave them no hope. And offensively, I'm just going to give it to the offensive line. The offensive line on Saturday night was so good, and they made the job for the running backs really easy. They made the life for C.J. Stroud relatively easy, and they just completely dominated the game. Took away any hope from Wisconsin that Wisconsin had to be in that game, and So no, it was a virtuoso performance. I had predicted the game before. If you guys remember, I had predicted 42-7 for Ohio State. So I had Ohio State winning by 35. I really didn't think the game was going to be close, just because I feel like I've seen this game before. I feel like the game where you've got a one-dimensional Wisconsin team coming into the horseshoe, playing against a fired-up Ohio State team at night, and you take away the run, force them to pass. It's really going to. They didn't really have a lot of speed on the outside. They couldn't stay with their skill players. Like, it just had all the earmarks of a blot, at least to my eye. Now, I've been wrong as much as I've been right, but I felt like I had a pretty good handle on the game Saturday night, and it certainly played out that way.
Bank, give me your offensive, defensive MVPs. And was that about what you expected out of Ohio State versus a reeling Wisconsin team?
No, I thought it would actually be closer. I really did. I thought Ohio State would win by maybe 2 touchdowns. I think I called it 35-20 or something. But, I looked at that Wisconsin loss to Washington State, and I thought they should have won the game. They outgained them 400 to 250. The turnovers were even. I mean, they stopped them on every third down. I couldn't see how Wisconsin lost that game to Washington State. But now I know how after watching them last night. But MVP for me, I thought Ryan Day just totally out-schemed Jim Leonard from the start, and Wisconsin needed to be even after the first quarter, have the lead. They're a different team playing with the lead and from behind, but I thought Ryan Day was 2 to 3 steps ahead of Jim Leonard, the whole game. And I think the way they used motion was unbelievable. And, Jim Leonard to me is the best DC in the country. And I know Ohio State has more talent than Wisconsin. They always do. But that doesn't always guarantee victory, And when you're the most talented team and you outcoach the other team and you're more physical than the other team, then you get that total butt whipping like we saw. So to me, Ryan Day just, he's had some moments as play caller, but he was at his best, Saturday night. And Stroud was amazing, I thought, as he usually is. He set the tone early, got him off to that early big lead, and then the party was over. Defensively, you can't choose Eichenberg, so that D line just stoned the Wisconsin offensive line and really made it easy for Eichenberg to make a lot of those tackles. He had a lot of free runs at those running backs.
Yeah, I think that, you guys made some great calls. For me, the offensive MVP, I gotta go with my tackles. I love PJ and Wand. Those guys are playing at a really high level. I think Paris is the best tackle in America at this point, and it's probably the best set of tackles we've had since Pace and Stringer. And I'm not Captain Hyperbole, but honestly, nobody follows Ohio State tackles more than I do. And I played with Alex Boone. Alex had a great career. These guys are better than we were. They're better than Jack Mewhort and Taylor Decker were. These guys have a high ceiling, especially Paris. I think Paris ends up being a top 10 pick. Super athletic. He looks a lot like Tyron Smith. I watch a lot of NFL film when Tyron was in his prime, and they're kind of built the same. They move the same, and that leads to making a lot of money. Defensively, I think that these young corners, man, because I'm telling you, granted, I know Wisconsin doesn't exactly have any werewolves out at their X and Z receivers, but when you're Jair Brown and you got to get thrown out there, you're going from watching and J.K. Johnson and those guys weren't scared. And I give a lot of credit to Tim Walton, Perry Eliano, Jim Knowles. I give credit to our pass rush for making it easy on these guys, but those kids didn't play scared. They didn't have the wide eyes going out there. And granted, they're not playing. The guys that play against in practice every day probably get some pretty callous up by the time they play on Saturday nights. But those young DBs, man, when all of a sudden this little availability report, which is they might as well write it in crayon at this point because there's always like 3 guys that are really good players that aren't on it. They released it. It's like, oh, by the way, we don't have our number 1 corner Dunzel Burke tonight either. We just didn't put that on the report. But the young DBs for me are I think they're really playing well. Bank, I'm going to throw it back to you. Keon Keeley came to town. Any rumblings? We had the whole cocoon around him. We had the Luke Montgomery Brew Crew, big win, blackout, about as good of a script as you could have. The game was pretty much out of hand after about the first quarter. But your thoughts on Keon Keeley at this point?
Yeah, I like where things are sitting, but I would like it better if he would have, agreed to cancel that Bama trip. But I believe that trip is going to take place. And then you got to get through that and see where things are. I think Ohio State is pulled even or ahead of Bama right now, and you got to see exactly where things lie after he takes that trip. I think he fits. Well, it doesn't matter what I think, but my guys in Florida seem to think he fits culturally better with Ohio State. It's kind of like, if Alabama and Notre Dame had a baby, it would be Ohio State. So he gets the best of both worlds at Ohio State. That's kind of the way it was explained to me by one of the guys you like best down there. So, and I thought it was a good description. So you got to just see where this ends up. But I like where Ohio State sits right now with Keon Keeley. I'd like it better if he'd cancel the Bama trip, but I don't expect that to happen.
Nevada, your thoughts on Keon at this point as well?
Yeah, I mean, all signs are certainly pointing up, with Keon, but the Alabama recruiting battles are always so challenging. I'm a little bit more optimistic about the visit may or may not happen. We'll see. Again, if you're betting, you have to bet on that visit going on. But he had another really good visit. He came out here for a reason. He had just been out here before to come, roll it right back with another unofficial visit. It's telling. Sometimes it's not, watch what they do, not what they say. And I think in this case, his actions are certainly indicating that he's positively inclined towards Ohio State. I think Ohio State's got everything he wants. And, Alabama just got a commitment for another defensive end just the other day. So it's like, I think Ohio State's in a really good spot. And I think if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on the Buckeyes. I wouldn't, it's not an equal sign. I'm not crystal balling, but if I had to put money, I'd put money on Ohio State to get his signature.
I like it. Nevada, we got Rutgers this week. What if you are Ryan Day? What is your mindset going into this game? And how do you manage this team going forward? Again, I said that this team, I think it's a much more talented skill-wise team than the 06 team that featured Ted Ginn, Troy Smith, Anthony Gonzalez. But again, Heisman quarterback, 2 first-round receivers, 2 great running backs, a lot of parallels. I feel like that team that I was a part of ate the cheese, and we got hit with the mousetrap. We did not keep our focus. We listened to how good we were, and we got smacked. I think it's a lot easier to do that now when you know that in all likelihood, we're probably going to be a 2 or a 3 seed, and we're going to have to play Bama in the first round and Georgia in the championship if we make it that far. How do you manage this team going forward? Because Columbus is a city where these kids are going to go around. They're going to be told how good they are. How do you manage that going forward, especially as the schedule's setting up to really what I think is going to be a 3 versus 4 showdown versus Michigan the Saturday after Thanksgiving?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to recognize that teams, like athletes, teams cannot play at a peak every week. They just can't. Inevitably you have peaks and valleys, and you're trying to build teams up towards games, just like an athlete, like an elite runner or something. You build up towards a particular meet or a particular race that you're trying to go for. For Ohio State, you're inevitably going to have some come down after that great win. Saturday night was a statement game for Ohio State. It was a statement game for Ryan Day. It was a statement game for Ohio State, and they built those kids up. They were ready to go. Now, you're inevitably going to have some pullback. Now, the good news is you're playing Rutgers, so it doesn't really matter because Rutgers is so dreadful that Ohio State, you can name whatever score you want. You just, you hope you come out and play. Don't look super sloppy. Try to get some of the young guys in there. Try to get the 2s and 3s and 4s, the balls that they stay engaged. Just, try to stay as sharp as you can. But inevitably, as a fan, you've got to recognize that you're not going to always be playing at the super mega high peak that you saw on Saturday night. And I think Ryan Day recognized that as well. So I actually think he'll kind of back off a little bit this week, realizing that, there's going to be a time to go to the whip, but this isn't the time. Get the guys healthy, heal up some of those nicks and little nagging injuries that you have, and give some of the young guys. I would present this to the young guys as this is your chance to play. This is your chance to make an opportunity for them. It's their Super Bowl, and I think you'll see a lot of guys, the young guys, balling out the next few weeks, and I think that's probably the way Ryan Day is going to play it.
Bank, I'm going to throw the same question at you. You're in Ryan Day's shoes. You're in the Woody Hayes. There'll be huge favorites this week versus Rutgers. How do you manage the team this week going into the Rutgers game, and then you manage these expectations going forward after that?
Yeah, I think it's more not putting the hammer down for Rutgers as much as putting the hammer down in practice. You have to get better. You have to keep getting better.
Mhm.
I mean, how many October Ohio State national champions have we seen? 15 in the last 30 years, so
Mhm.
you have to keep getting better. And, I know people say you can't get better playing Arkansas State or Toledo. Well, that's not true because the team we saw last night was a better football team than the team we saw play Notre Dame. So, now do you put the hammer down for Rutgers? Not necessarily, but I would in practice. I mean, you have to keep getting better. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. So I like where they sit right now. They're 1/3 through. And I like the fact that they're a better football team today than they were week one. So, and that's the goal. You have to get better week by week to compete for a national title.
Yeah, I agree because again, it's Bank and I laugh about this all the time. I do with you too, Nevada. But every time they play a game, they win a game. I always judge the performance based on is that good enough to beat Georgia. Because I mean, there's not a Georgia in the Big Ten that we have to run into. Michigan's as close as we get, but Georgia, Bama, they're a different level. And was that performance good enough to beat them? Bank, I'm going to throw it back to you one last time, and we're going to wrap this thing up. What is the one area that Ohio State must improve going forward to really round out this team? There's been some areas that I think, not necessarily, I don't think troublesome is the word, but some things that they need to really get better at. For me, it's pass rush. I think they just, they get a lot of pressure, but they just don't, for some reason, they don't get home. Jim Knowles
Right.
with Oklahoma State's guys had 57 sacks last year, and this year we're not near that. But what is an area, and if that's one, then maybe throw another one on top that you think that they really need to hone in on down the stretch to continue to get to the level of winning a national championship.
Yeah, the one unknown is pass defense because they've played, some pretty god awful. The main teams they played, Notre Dame and Wisconsin, that those offenses were like watching Newt Rockney in the black and white films. So I don't know. Can they stand up to a big time passing attack? And I don't know if we're ever going to know, with this schedule. I don't know, so it's hard to say, but I would say that is a possible question mark. And I don't know how you don't answer it with Rutgers and Iowa and Penn State. You just don't get that answered. So you just got to hope that they're good enough. And I don't know that we're going to know that on this schedule.
Nevada, same question to you. Where do we need to get better coming down the stretch?
I would echo what Banks said about the pass defense. It's such a great unknown, and it's really unusual to not play anybody on the schedule that can really actively threaten you with the forward pass, and it's kind of an unusual situation for Ohio State this year, and it does create a lot of questions. I'd say offensively, you know, I think the only thing that's missing from the Ohio State offense right now that we're kind of activating the tight end, is passes to the running backs. I'd like to see them work on that. I'd like to see them work on swing passes out to the running backs. I'd like to work, some more screen passes, some other things. But you're really picking nits with an offense that is operating at such a high level, and Stroud is operating at such a high level. But I think that if they did that, then I just think it's going to add another dimension. I think those are the types of plays that you need to beat teams like Alabama and Georgia, because you're not just going to line it up and just bully them off the ball. And I think the swing passes out to our two great running backs who can both catch the ball and punish guys out in space are great equalizers. And I'd like to see that implemented a little bit more fully.
Yeah, I totally agree. Urban Meyer on Big Noon Kickoff 2 weeks ago had a great segment talking about how, when you're going against really, really, really good defensive lines like Georgia and Bama most years, like you got to have about 8 to 10 plays where you don't block those guys, or you don't have to block those guys. And those, in his words, are like nakeds, they're screen passes, things that basically, the pass rush is negligible or negated by the fact that they can get rid of the ball quick. They roll out, they move the pocket. So I totally agree there as the pass rushes and the defensive lines get better. Last question, I to close this thing out, I'm gonna start back with you, Nevada. Is this Ryan Day's best chance to win a national championship? I know the 19 team is loaded, but looking down the pike, I don't see a 2019 LSU team. I don't see a 2021 Georgia Bulldog defense. Is this his best chance with a combination of his team and the potential opponents coming down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, loaded question, but definitely yes. I mean, you can't ask more than having a favorable schedule, veterans at the skill positions, improving defense, weak Big Ten. All you got to do is get to the playoffs. You get to the playoffs, you got a chip in a chair, and then you just roll the dice and you take your chances. I think this is, and as you mentioned, there's no great team, and there's no juggernauts out there right now that are the boogeymen that are so scary that you're like, I can't even imagine us lining up against them. So yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely his best chance, and I just have a sneaking suspicion Ohio State's going to be there at the end.
Bank, same question to you. Again, there's no Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, LSU team. There's no Georgia defense like last year. Is this Ryan Day's best chance to win a national championship thus far in his young career at Ohio State?
I just don't think you can answer it now. And again, like I say,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen so many September and October Ohio State national champions. I've seen so many of them, and none of them ever win it. But
I played on 3 of them, so
yeah,
I
you
get
were
you.
on 4 of them probably. But and,
No
and
rings except for my wedding ring.
at the end of September in 19, I don't think LSU was LSU. They were coming off a lucky win over Texas where they could have been beaten. So it's a marathon. It seems like a sprint to a fan, and to me, because it's over so quick, and I hate to see it end, but it really is a marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to get better. And I don't know what this team's going to be when they line up and play Penn State, let alone when they line up and play Michigan. So just take it week by week. They were better Saturday night than they were the first Saturday night. And that's what you need to do. You need to keep doing that all the way through, because we can call them national champions right now. And if they lose to Michigan and don't make it to the Big Ten title game, then all that's bullcrap and it doesn't matter. Just get better along the way, enjoy the ride, and we'll answer that question maybe later on in the season, but you don't answer that question after 4 games.
Yeah, I totally
In
agree. I
my
was just
opinion.
trying to. No, I agree. I was trying to spice it up a little bit. Again, I look back to the 2015
Yeah, I mean,
team
they
when I
might
was.
be.
Yeah, you're right. You don't get your ring sizes out at the end of September. You got to do it in February or mid January after you win that last game. But I remember that 15 game Michigan State. I was at the MB Post in Manhattan Beach watching it at the bar, and I remember backup quarterback, maybe the most talented Ohio State team of all time, and that kicker hits that game winner, and nobody in the universe thought that 15 team would lose to that Michigan State team without Connor Cook even playing.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
Bank,
Juice Williams? Remember Juice Williams?
oh, I was there. That was my senior day. Thanks, Bank.
I know you were there. I know you.
Bank coming off the top rope on my last game I ever played in the horseshoe. I
I'm
appreciate
just
it.
saying,
I have to go play an intramural game. No, I know.
just never know, man. You enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and I
Beat Rutgers, and on you go.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah, I just the guys got to stay healthy, got to keep grinding, and away we go. So thank you guys. I'm gonna wrap this thing up because it is time to get back on the boards. I appreciate you guys as always. Fantastic by Bank and Nevada, the 2 best in the game. Found only on BuckeyeScoop.com. We are grinding on the message board, having a blast, having a ton of fun. Great community. Incredible game thread on Saturday night. Biggest in the game. It's so funny reading some of these comments, but I love it. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like. Subscribe to the channel, comment your MVPs, and which team makes you most nervous coming down the stretch in the on Ohio State schedule? Is it Penn State? Is it Michigan? Is it whoever we see in the championship? It looks like it could be Minnesota at this point. Then on to the playoffs. So there's never been a better time to be a part of the best premium community on the web, BuckeyeScoop.com. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.